Hi, my name's Kate Twitty and I'm the Pro Marketing Coordinator here at ZYTO. Thank you for joining us for our December Wellness webinar. Today we're super excited to hear from Dr. John Brimhall, who will be speaking about holistic health, the 6 steps to wellness. Just wanted to quickly go over a little bit about Dr. John Brimhall. He's a doctor of chiropractic. He's a best-selling author and lecturer. Dr. Brimhall has formulated over 200 nutritional products. He's a fellow of the International Academy of Medical Acupuncture. He's a diplomat of International College of Applied Kinesiology. Dr. Brimhall is a researcher and consultant for Zymogen, Bioenergy X, and laser companies. Without further ado, here's Dr. Brimhall.
Well, this is Dr. John Brimhall. I am a chiropractor, an acupuncturist, and a nutritionist. I went to chiropractic school because of my own miracle, and I've spent the last 49 years serving others. It's been an exciting journey. And I want to review with you just a little bit of what we've developed through the years and the excitement that we still have after 49 years of practice. B.J. Palmer said, get the big idea and all else will follow. I just always wondered when I was in school, started in 1968, what was the big idea? And the big idea was that any intelligence is from above down, inside out. And whatever your belief system is, that's God, that's spirit, that's innate. I think it's all the same issue here. Everything is energy. And the energy that we have, if we channel it properly, we're healthy and well. And if not, we have dysfunction. Just in the beginning slide here, this is a book that we wrote years ago. My son now has been in practice 15 or 16 years, and he came over and took over my practice full time about that long ago, and I went into full-time teaching. But I continue to treat patients because the more you do, the more you learn, the more you learn, the more you do. And this is another book. This is what made me a best-selling author, and Health Secrets Revealed, Volume 3. That's another book that I wrote. This is another one that I just finished here last couple of months, Wake Up to Miracles. Now, we call our work mentoring in miracles because I say to people, and I've taught as many as 44 seminars in 1 year, that if you're not seeing miracles every day in practice, you're missing one of the steps to wellness. And what does that mean? Well, the 6 steps to wellness is what we developed for a very good reason. I was, like I said, I had my miracle. I couldn't walk. I was in constant pain. They're talking about exploratory surgery. They carried me into a chiropractor and I walk out. And he says, you're going to be a chiropractor. I said, no, I'm studying to be a dentist. They said, you owe it to chiropractic and humanity to do for others what chiropractic did for you. And the next thing I knew, that started to really resonate with me. And I went to Palmer College, like I said, in 1968. And it has been a wonderful journey ever since. And in seeing patients, all we were taught in Palmer College back in those days, there was no classes in nutrition, no classes in acupuncture, but we got incredible courses in structure. We had Gonstead who came there, and Lee and Lee Fuhr, and we just got a lot of different ways of evaluating. Upper cervical was strong there, so Grosty and Pettibon. And I went into practice knowing nothing, but I got my miracle with chiropractic, and then my wife to be. I had to get married, not for the usual reason, but I wrecked my car just before I went to school. And so we'd already been engaged and we decided to go ahead and get married then so we could sell her Mustang, get us a truck and haul it back to school. So we went back to school, and for a wedding present, one of the chiropractors that sent me to school gave her her first upper cervical visit. Mine was full spine, hers became upper cervical. And she had had headaches for 5 years following a previous auto accident that she was in with me that put me into the chiropractor. One visit, the headache of 5 years was gone. So we went back to school, excited about chiropractic. We didn't know what all it meant, but we knew we got miracles and we wanted to give miracles to the people that we saw. So we went back working as a team. She had to work 2 40-hour-week jobs to put me through school. I worked as a guard so I could study at night, and we formed a cleaning company so we could clean toilets, shampoo carpets, whatever we could do to get through school. All my sons are physicians, orthopedic surgeon, chiropractor, and dentist. And one of the wives is a physical therapist, has her doctorate. And they say, well, why did you do that? I said, well, because back when we went to school, our parents moved and left no forwarding address. It wasn't like your mother giving you a credit card and 800 number to call home. So we had to do it on our own. but it was a wonderful journey working side by side, and we continue to work side by side from that day forward. And in developing this, what we found was we got miracles, miracle after miracle. It'd take me a whole day. In fact, the chapter on miracles talks about my first 10, 15 years of practice only. Can't even do the other 40. I didn't have room in that one chapter to talk about all the miracles that we got. But what we learned was sometimes you adjust people and you get a miracle, but sometimes you don't. So I had a patient who referred in to me for migraines. I adjusted them, the migraines left after the first visit. 14 years of migraines. They'd had a hysterectomy and a vagotomy trying to help the migraines, and nothing helped. One adjustment, and the migraines went away. So I'm pretty cocky about this, pretty excited. Of course, she referred another patient into me with migraines. You know the drill. Every sufferer has other sufferers in mind when you help them. And so the second patient came in. I thought, man, her spine's a lot better than the other one. This should be easy. But I adjusted her and got very little results. I thought, that's crazy. Why not? I know I was following Goodhart around all the time I was in chiropractic school and NIMO, and went to Gonstead's clinic and trying to learn all I could. But Goodhart always talked about there were 3 factors that cause subluxation: structural, nutritional, and emotional. Well, I thought, I looked up in the vitamin products manual, what would you give somebody for migraines if they needed nutrition? Well, I gave them that nutrition, and boom, their migraines went away after the adjustment and nutrition. They sent another patient in. I learned my lesson. I'm going to give them proper nutrition. I'm going to give them the adjustment, and her migraines didn't go away until I evaluated her emotional counterpart. And I said, Goodhart taught me, what was going on in your life the time your migraines started? And she broke out sobbing and told me that she had been molested. So we did what they call positive point therapy, where it brought up on her display, her computer. The body's a biocomputer. It's all a hologram biocomputer. If you don't understand that language, then let's talk later. But the body remembers everything that's ever happened to it, even if it brings on genetically. So we treated her by having her recall when the migraine started from the causation of being molested, and then we neutralize that like a computer. No matter what it says, you can bring it up, and every time it'll say the same thing unless you highlight it, and you can erase it and type in something else. We learned how to do that with the body. So we took away the emotional charge to that molestation. Her migraines left. So that threw me into the study of what causes the subluxation. Well, here's one of our doctors here, Dr. Brimhall, and they were introduced to 200,000 patients from using the 6 steps to wellness: structural, nutritional, emotional, detoxification, etc. And I'll go with those where you can see them at the same time. So here's a picture of what happens when you help the guru of 200,000 people. So this is Dr. Jesse Liebman and Dr. Derek Bruno's clinic, and they practice the 6 steps to wellness. So needless to say, you get a lot of referrals when you get results. Some of us have been caught in this trap. The doctor will be in a few minutes. He's trying to figure out what disease goes with your insurance. Well, we don't play that game in the 6 steps to wellness. We decide, do you have subluxations? What were the cause of the subluxation? Then correct the cause of the cause. And in so doing, we have to do things a little differently sometimes to get down to help people. Like all I was taught was chiropractic adjustment. Very well, I came out of school really understand a lot of wonderful techniques, but sometimes they need a nutrition, and sometimes they also need emotional release. Sometimes they need detoxification. Sometimes now with computers and cell phones, electromagnetics cause headaches. So we went on to just identify the 6 things that cause the body to subluxate. So if you want something you've never had, you have to be willing to do something you've never done. Thomas Jefferson. So we started looking differently on what it is that cause these subluxations, identify them, and correct them through the 6 steps to wellness. So we call the 6 interferences: structural interference, electrical pollution, cell phones, computers, all kinds of stuff, the big power wires over your house, your office, nutritional interference, allergies and sensitivity, constant emotional stress, which is very common in our day and age, and toxic accumulation in the body. So we've made ways of evaluating these, because if a patient comes in, they only have a subluxation, you can identify and correct that subluxation. You're home free. There's no more dysfunction. But if they have a whole bunch of dominoes been tipped over, emotional stress, like the lady I said who was in trouble because she had been emotionally molested, sexually molested, and she had cousins and sisters who'd been molested by the same person, we were able to help them by doing structural, nutritional, and emotional release. But some patients are so toxic that you have to clear the toxins too, like we outlined. So we identify all those dominoes are tipped over and stand them all back up. So here's what it looks like looking at all 6 steps to wellness here. We reestablish structural integrity by many chiropractic techniques, applied kinesiology, Gonstead work, activator work, instrument adjusting that we use very specific instruments to adjust the, excuse me, the percussor, which helps to release fascial restrictions. We didn't learn much about fascia in chiropractic school, but I've learned a ton about it from the osteopaths, Robert Fulford in years past, and that I've taken his work and developed a whole system of releasing fascial restrictions. All the nervous systems are encased in the fascia: the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, and even the collateral nervous system, the enteric gut. All of those are encased in fascia. You say, what are you talking about? Well, the dura mater encasses the brain, doesn't it? The spinal cord and the perineum. How about the plantar fascia of the foot? How about the heart, the pericardium, the lungs, the pleura? Those are all fascia. It's so important that we learn to evaluate the fascia because it causes recurring subluxation. So we evaluate and rebalance that structural integrity in many different ways: craniosacral, adjusting, as I said, with fascia. We found how to identify if people are having electromagnetic pollution, and we have solutions for that with the simple multi-pore magnet or a large unit that completely neutralizes the 5G that's coming hitting us every day. Then in nutrition, we found out, I went back and got a bachelor's degree in nutrition after I came out of chiropractic school, and we learned the number one thing we should evaluate is adrenal function, or the general adaptation syndrome that Hans Soe talked about. And we developed very specific nutrition to reset the adrenals, the thymus, the spleen, the stomach, the areas that are hit by the general adaptive syndrome. We replenish nutrition for each specific organ and gland. Let's say the brain is under stress. Let's say the pancreas is inflamed. Let's say the intestines are spastic. You might have an allergy like gluten. So we look at all that. We also reduce infective organisms. And since I have a bachelor's degree in nutrition and have spent now the last 40 years in evaluating, I have actually formulated over 200 nutritional formulations to detoxify, to regenerate, to balance the brain, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, we give people enzymes and hydrochloric acid if they're deficient there. And most people don't have too much acid, they have too little. And probably 90% of the population do not have enough enzymes, the kind of junk food that they eat. And then we reestablish the bowel flora on every patient. I take enzymes with every meal. I take flora every morning to start my day off, etc. So that's what we learn to do and how to evaluate patients. And as I mentioned, you're evaluating emotional patterns and stress and releasing those, reprogramming the body for allergies and sensitivities, because if you have allergies, it'll trigger subluxation immediately. We remove heavy metals and other toxins from the body by homeopathy, by using laser technology, by foot baths, by infrared sauna. So there's a lot of things that we do above and beyond what we normally think of in chiropractic, and I'm sure many of you are there. If you know ZYTO, then you probably have a ZYTO machine, and we've used one for years in helping evaluate possible allergies, toxicities, deficiencies, excesses. So that's how we got hooked in with ZYTO many years ago and use that daily by many of our practitioners. Now, if you remember Alice in Wonderland, she goes to the Cheshire Cat and she said, "Which way do I go?" And what did he say? "Where do you want to end up?" She said, "Well, I don't know." Then he says, "I can't help you." So if you're stuck where you are and you don't know where you want to go, or you don't think you need to go anywhere, there's not much we can do for you. But if you know where you want to go, and if you want to remove all 6 interferences, create miracles in your practice every day, then we can draw you a straight line to identify the 6 interferences, correcting all 6 and watching the body heal and repair. So you can take a real twisty road like the slide on the right, or go a straight path or somewhere in the middle. I like to go straight as fast as I can to get there. One thing that we learned from Robert Fulford, the famous DO, and maybe you heard of him, and this is percussion work, and he actually did a study at the University of Arizona at Tucson, where they took something like 30 children who had ear infections, and every one of them had to have at least one surgery that failed, and it even pushed the tubes out of their ears, and they continued to get ear infections. Well, he used the percussor, unwound the fascia, unwound the fascia in the craniosacral area, particularly in the cranium, and not one of those students ever had an ear infection again. So we know adjust an atlas, balance in the body, drain lymphatics, open the thoracic duct, all those help. But by percussion, Fulford was a genius, and we tapped into his genius and now teach his work. So when we evaluate a spine or subluxation or interference in the structure, we look at the spine, the craniosacral mechanisms, extremities, the organs, the TMJ, and the fascia in general. So if there is a subluxation, we want to know what is the cause of the subluxation. I'm not seeing now, I know I said that once or twice already. I'm going to say it about 10 more times. Because sometimes we get so stuck on what we know, we don't want to look at what we don't know, or that there might be other possibilities triggering that subluxation. So we use instruments here. We use them from two different companies, from two different, but one's an instrument on top here, which is the adjuster. We tap the spine in with that, and we release the fascia with the percussor here. We also have another company that we use as well doing that. Geopathic stress can be caused from electromagnetic, like high voltage lines, outlets, computers. G5 is a killer right now. And so we use things to evaluate and treat that. This is the total shield that neutralizes G5. This is a mini harmonizer you can't even fly with to protect you from what's going on in the airplane. We use multipolar magnets. We use special tools that we put on our phones and on our computers to keep that radiation coming. And every cell in the body is a magnet. Every cell in the body is plus negative, positive and negative. So we'll show you how to even uncover hidden weaknesses and to balance them with a strong, like a 5,000 Gauss magnet. It's another tool that we use. Interference from nutrition, it could be malnutrition, insufficiency, deficiency, imbalances, abnormal pH. So we evaluate all that. We get people off. There's no way I eat anything like that. I haven't in 40 years now. So we teach our patients to eat good things. How about vegetables, good clear water, that kind of thing. Well, so we reset the adrenals like we talked about a minute ago and balance each gland. So we use a reflex testing method, like you may have heard of Versandol, you may have heard of Goodheart. They use muscle testing to tell and to determine which organs, glands, or systems might be in jeopardy. Then we have nutrition that would balance that out. We have very specific nutrition that clears out infection, hidden infections even in the body. We already mentioned enzymes, hydrochloric acid, and Valflora. So that's a repeat there. So you can really start to get the vision how maybe if there's somebody comes in and you don't get the miracle you want to get, maybe they have an allergy, maybe they have an enzyme deficiency. They've actually done studies of cytotoxic testing where you can take people's blood and you can tell what foods they're allergic to. Well, if they're allergic to that food and you give them enzymes, 50% of the allergies go away alone. We use plant enzymes because they are very effective in all ranges of pH. As you know, the mouth is alkaline, the stomach gets very acid, the small intestine becomes alkaline again, and then the small intestine is slightly acid. And that doesn't always work that way. In doing testing with specific instruments of having them swallow and check the pH from the mouth all the way till it came out the anus, we found out some people were reversed. Some people, instead of having a pH 3 or 4 in the stomach, it was a pH of 8. So many problems happen not identifying what's going on that triggers allergy. And we get allergies from inhaling, ingesting, contacting, or even injected, to say the least. But allergies we treat with vials, emotionals, we use negative belief systems, traumas, negative habit patterns, shapes, subconscious, and the 7 deadly fears, and we clear that out emotionally. So you can see this triangle, how they all come through work there. And we call this a turnkey procedure of evaluating patients and naturally in identifying allergies and sensitivities, even emotions and nutrition, the ZYTO comes into effect there, even somewhat toxic and structure. So that's one of our keys that we use. And color is very important. We actually have a whole technique where we can balance the body, feelings buried alive, positive point therapy, 5-minute phobia cure, subliminal takes, ocular release, healing codes, and laser emotional release therapy. Wow, that's a lot of stuff you're throwing at us. And yes, it is. And you may not want to do all of it, but you may want to. You may be frustrated with your practice because you're not making as much money as you used to make, or helping people like you used to because they're much more toxic, less balanced, etc. So we have learned by using all these together, we continue to get miracles. A seminar I taught across the country for many years was called How to Clone $1 Million Practice, because we generated over $1 million collected over 10 years in a row when I started full-time teaching. And it's the joy to help people and to have them get better by evaluating and treating all areas. So removing heavy metals, we talked about using foot baths, we talked about using specific nutrition. Now here's something you may not be aware of, and that's the 5 factors of central integration. The neurologists talk about this all the time, but all 5 need to be balanced for that patient each visit for him to get results. You think, what are you, crazy? What do you mean spindle cells, spinal facets? I adjust the spine, so of course they're balanced. How do the eyes, ears, and hearing ears balance have to do with anything? They have to do with everything, because these 5 senses, the body is putting into balance continually, whatever it can do to get it to balance. So all of the neurons are in balance. What do you mean? I mean, in sending out messages and getting back messages, you want to have them balanced. You don't want the body having too much sensory and not enough motor, or too much motor, not enough sensory. And when they're sitting there balanced perfectly, they're not kicking out or receiving overly, then when you go to do something, they function perfectly. They can fire out sensory, or they can take in motor and balance. But if you're in complete drive, then they cannot function properly. So you want the body to be able to see, feel, hear, and know where you are in space at all times. Let me give you an example. You're going to go play golf. So you look with your eyes down at the golf ball. You look at where you're going to send it. You watch a golf. They look back at the ball. They look out there. They take a couple practice swings. The practice swings engages your posterior spinal facets. They're everywhere but atlas on axis, aren't they? No posterior mechanical facets there. But then those facets are loaded with nerves, and they go straight up and in the brainstem. And if the posterior facets feel something and send the sensory different than the spindle cells send, you remember spindle cells are all in those striated muscles, and that if you bend the biceps, the spindle cells are in the belly, but the triceps has to relax. So when you straighten the arm out, the triceps contract and the biceps have to relax. So we have prime movers, we have synergists, we have antagonists. And those are all regulated in the spindle cells of the belly of the muscle. And if they send a different signal than what you're supposed to, your spinal facets do, or what your eyes see, or what your ears hear or feel and balance, you malfunction. Once pay through, I just bent over and picked up something and bam, it went out. Well, maybe that had to do with central integration, because if your eyes and spindle cells and posterior mechanical facets were seeing something differently, then they send a different signal to the body. And how can it operate properly if you have 5 different signals going to the neuron and they all say something different? So we teach you how to evaluate and balance those circuitries. And it is amazing the miracles that you get from that. Let me just give you one quick example. I had a patient who referred to me with dizziness and vertigo. And I mean, they were so bad, they couldn't drive a car anymore. They couldn't go out of the house with somebody holding on to them. And so what did we do? Well, naturally, you're going to adjust the spine. I'm a chiropractor. I could do acupuncture. I'm a certified acupuncturist. I'm a certified kinesiologist. But I wanted to take in the 5 factors of central integration to help this person one visit when they've been several years trying to get help from everyone. So I had them look straight ahead at me. Then I had them just rotate their eyes as far to the right as they could go. And if that made them weak, then I know the eyes are a problem, don't I? So to lock that information in, I can tap the thymus, or the emotional heart it's called, and then it lock the information in so I can stack more information in the brain. So then I would have them turn their head all the way to the right and their eyes further right till they can go. If that makes them weak, I tap that in. Then I have them turn the eyes to the left, tap that in if it's weak. If it's not, I just ignore it. If their eyes go up and they get weak, if their eyes go down and they get weak, I tap that thymus, locking the information in. If you have ever seen this, it's very simple to do. We teach this in our seminars and our videotapes so you can learn how to do it. And then we have them turn the head to the left, we have them tip it up, we have them tip it down, and rotate the eyes in different directions. Once that's done, we then take a laser. Well, what if you don't have a laser? Well, call my office and get one. 1-800, right? It's important to have a laser in chiropractic world. It is so important. We sell lasers, $20,000. That's 18 watts. We sell one that's under $3,000. That's 80 milliwatts, but has red, infrared, and violet. And so those three different colors speak three different languages. And so just go to brimhall.com. That's pretty simple. www.brimhall.com. We have all the different people we work with, including ZYTO and the different laser companies, and we carry them in stock because it's very important to use a laser in balancing the brain. And we use different colors because I say it speaks a different language. One's a modulator, one's a stimulator, one penetrates the bone, one goes superficial. So we use all that information. So I take the laser, shine it over the thymus, visualize that, and then I would go up to the brainstem, right, the back of the occiput there, and down just where atlas meets the occiput, laser into there. Then I would go around the compass points of the eyes, around the dragon, all around both eyes. When I've done that, they no longer have eye disturbances when I look right or left or turn the head. And this person, we were able to get back to work, back to driving the car again in just one visit by balancing that out. So we adjust the spine using the adjusting instrument I showed you. We do the eyes like I told you. We use a tuning fork to balance the ears in hearing and ears balance. And not like I can teach you all this in one day, but just to know that it can happen is good for you to do. I mentioned this a minute ago, but I want to say it again. The problem with chiropractic is we get miracles. Why is that a problem? Because sometimes we don't. Then why? Why is more important than the how? So if you think chiropractic's a failure, that's not true. We failed chiropractic in the patient because we didn't take into consideration all 5 factors of sensory integration. We weren't taught that in chiropractic school. Now in the neurological courses, they teach a little bit more. But the questions we ask creates the answers we get. Are we asking enough of the right questions? And that's what we teach you to do. So in our 6 steps to wellness, each of these pieces of the puzzle are balanced on each person. You say, well, that could take an hour. Well, it could. So sometimes we schedule an hour appointment to be able to evaluate all that and treat it. But you can do this in a 5-minute visit. You won't treat all 6 steps in 5 minutes. But in my case, I see only failed cases. I only treat somebody now that other doctors refer to me, or a patient that they know they've been a lot of other places, and I do all 6 steps on it. Sometimes I book an hour appointment. But you can do it in 5 minutes, you can do it in 10, you can do it in 15. You just have to break it down. But in my case, when I'm treating the worst of the worst, I do schedule hour appointments very frequently. What do you charge for something like that? I charge $300 an hour. Well, I can see a patient every 10 minutes. That's 6 patients an hour, and I can charge $75 and I make more than you. Absolutely. It depends what you want to do. Or you can have somebody in your office trained to do the percussive or to do the nutrition scanning. You can still see 10 patients an hour. But to have 200,000 people referred to you, or 20,000 like we showed in the beginning, it's a very fun to be able to get results on the people that come to see you. Now, maybe I'm covering more than you want to know here today, so well, I'll cut it fairly short here, but let me just show you what we're talking about that's so important. We're taught to adjust the spine. In school, we were taught to evaluate the cranial nerves. Now they even have kinesiology or motion, muscle testing, range of motion taught in school. But in this particular case, the midline structures, BJ said more than DD Palmer, above, down, inside out. What does that mean? The brain and the spinal cord are your most important, but it also goes out to the periphery. So if you're going to treat with a laser or with a spinal adjustment, you treat the center. And how do you treat the brain if you don't percuss the cranium or you don't know how to do cranial sacral? How do you adjust the spine unless you adjust the spine? But we adjust it with the adjuster or with the arthro-stem because I can adjust the entire spine every visit in a matter of a minute because I want to stimulate those posterior mechanical facets. I have pictures of the facets there on the lower 3 vertebrae because those go straight up to the brain, which I'll show you on the next slide here. But when we balance the cerebellum, and we do with laser on every visit, or if they have an imbalance or right-left brain, can't show you all that now, but come and see Dr. ZYTO himself is going to be with us in January in Phoenix. Come down and we'll teach you all this, show you all this, and plus have the ZYTO there to be tested on it. But the cerebellum, only 10% by mass, but it's 50% of all the neurons are in the cerebellum that control us every day. So we take all this into consideration. So if you adjust the atlas, your upper cervical, and they don't get better, it doesn't mean you failed or chiropractic has failed. It means that we failed to communicate with all 5 factors central integration. So we need to laser the cerebellum. We may need to balance the cerebrospinal fluid, the cranium itself. We may need to evaluate. Now I remember when we took neurology course in chiropractic school in Davenport, they taught us how to evaluate the cranial nerves. I remember asking, well, how do you fix it when you find them wrong? You find them deficient. You say, well, you really don't, you just document. Well, that's not true anymore. If we find on old Olympus towering tops of Finn and German pick some hops, whichever one are weak, we can, again, when they get weak, when we test them by having them smell or look at a direction or do a pinwheel, whatever one is weak, we tap that in that thymus I told you about, then we laser the brainstem. And by lasering the brainstem, they reset 99% of the time. And so cranial nerves start to function better. Well, so those are the nerves that keep us alive. I think that's pretty necessary. So here's something I wanted to tell you about the joint mechanical receptors. And I apologize covering so much so fast, but I remember when I took courses from DeJarnette and from Gonstead, sometimes those guys would spend all day telling you what you need to know, but we ran out of time and knowing how to do it. So what I'm gonna do is give you more than possibly can you understand, but you go back and look at the slides. You can order DVDs from us. You can come to the seminar. We just have, my phone number is not unlisted. My email is not hidden. I'm here to help people like I was helped. And the genius of chiropractic is we can do that to the vast majority of people. So let's take the posterior mechanical facets here. And Dr. Nelson was working for Nielsen at that time. And he actually put this together for me because he was certified in the neurology courses. So when you fire a joint mechanical receptor, as we've talked about, 5L connects with the sacrum, all the way up to 4 on 3 and 3 on 2, all the way to axis. And then we have an odontoid up there between atlas and axis. We don't have posterior mechanical facets, but all the other vertebrae do, and they're firing constantly. So this joint mechanical receptor goes to the dorsal root ganglion. Then that impulse goes to the cell body in the spinal nerve. From there, it goes to the spinal cord and the synaptogenesis or neuroplastic, aka wind up, if there's a fixation or subluxation here. So we have to clear that because through the anterior lateral thoracic tract, the information goes straight to the cerebellum. Well, the cerebellum then goes to the thalamus to the cortex to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus goes right in the periactive ductal gray, and the ramus magnus nucleus into the brainstem. So you, when you adjust a vertebra, are balancing every neurological impulse from the spine to the ramus magnus nucleus of the brainstem. You're a genius. It's better if you know you're doing all that and know that also you have to balance not only the spine, but the spindle cells and the eyes and the ears, hearing and vibration. So the ramus magnus nucleus drives serotonin that blocks pain. So you're a pain blocker besides increasing function. In the brain itself, there's the frontal cortex, the parietal, the temporal, and the occipital that you know. And it's important that we balance those. We actually have people do and evaluate if that part of the brain is not working just by therapy localization, kinesiology. And sometimes if say you touch the frontal, they have symptoms of frontal lobe problems, but you touch it and it won't therapy localize because they're too toxic. So we've developed a nutrition, a homeopathic remedy that balances that. Excuse me. And so it's important that we balance each aspect of the brain. We can do it with nutrition. I made one very specific nutrition to balance the brain. We have laser, where we laser each aspect of the brain. Again, there's the equipment that we use. And this talks about how we correct cervical disc without equipment. We're not going to go over that. I just want you to know it's available. How we can tap the disc in and have it repair. How we use the percussion instruments and we can interconnect all the nervous system there. The proprioceptive fascias of the fascia and the properties are incredible. The fascia is from head to toe. It's a conductor of piezoelectric energy. It goes right next to the bone. It'd be in the highest amount. It's made of a crystalline type structure. And I talked about if you use saran wrap and you wrap the entire body and all the organs, the heart and the lungs, that's exactly what you have here, but it's much thicker and stronger. And there's some areas it's especially thick, and that breaks the fascial lines. It envelopes bones, muscles, organs, blood vessels, and on and on and on. So there's that saran wrap that we talked about, to how it's important that you identify where that saran wrap is locked up and you free it up with the percussor, because it does control neurological input and function and therefore dysfunction. Trauma stores in there and in the fascia, and we release that by percussion and tearing it loose. So just a quick example here. Let's say that you have a trauma. So what we show here is the amount of trauma that comes into the body. Say this, it shows that little loop coming over the fascial restriction. It locks up the tissues. So we put the percussor, showing you there on the left, and your listening hand goes over on the right of that particular area, and you percuss into it. And the percussor is like a jackhammer. You percuss in those two. It feels very nice. It feels like a vibrator, but it's not. It's straight up and down, not side to side. And you get enough energy into there to where you surpass the amount of trauma that caused the lockup until it turns loose. And then you can free up migraine, you can free up restrictions, frozen shoulders. I mean, there's just almost no limitation to what you can accomplish when you do that. I'm just going to give you a quick example here, and then we're going to stop and maybe potentially answer some questions you might have in your mind. But intention is more important than technique when you're adjusting somebody, when you're using the percussion, when you're using the instrument, when you're muscle testing. It is important that we keep our mind PTC, present time, right? We want to have present time consciousness right there when we're working on that person. If you can't love the person you're adjusting, keep your hands off of them. Because love is a connection to all. And if we love what we do in chiropractic, we love the patients that we're treating, and it doesn't matter if we're using the adjuster, the percussor, or hands, we're getting more healing. You probably saw the work that was done in water. If you just think about water and you're angry at it, it changes the crystalline structure. If you yell at it, obscenities, the crystalline structure changes. So we must realize that nutrition, structural correction, emotional release, very powerful with the intention that we put into there. And it's important that we don't get discouraged by not getting results. So the people say, why do you now go into teaching stem cell therapy or biological allografts? I said, well, because I'm 73 now, and when you're a baby, you have millions of stem cells, and each stem cell reproduces at least 1 million times. Some authorities say 1 billion times. But when you're 70, the stem cell only can reproduce 200 times, and their stem cells are not as strong at 70. So if I can do things like increase nutrition, I've actually formulated nutrition to increase the stem cells in our body, to increase the telomere length. But also, Dr. Harris, I travel with a medical doctor who's a genius, possibly the brightest man in the world right now. He graduated from high school at 7, only because socially he wasn't ready to go until 7, but he remembers everything he read since he was 3 years old. He graduated from 4-year college at 9. They sent him right on to med school. And while he's in medical school, he also took naturopathic school. And he also knew everything he'd ever read and could still correlate it in his head and give it to you. So he graduated 3 PhDs, his medical degree, and his naturopathic degree before his 12th birthday. And you should say that's impossible, because for an average person, that's beyond impossible. But he read all the college text. It was 4-year college before he went to school. He read them in the summer, then has the audacity to remember everything he read. So he and I travel around together teaching the use of stem cells. He reads the the literature in 3 languages. Yes, he knows English, but he also reads Russian and German. So he can read the professional literature. So he keeps up on all the literature around the world in those 3 languages. Plus he speaks 7 languages. And he says stem cells are good, so I believe him. And I've taken probably 8 or 10 myself now, and I'll continue to take a couple every year. So we could go on for hours and hours here. We want to completely drive you crazy. So let's just go back and review a few things that we've talked about. I was helped by chiropractic, strictly structural adjusting. I found that works for thousands of patients, but sometimes they need more. Sometimes they need structural correction, nutritional evaluation, and subsequently give them the proper nutrition. And also we need to find out if there's emotional stressors they have. They may have toxic accumulations we need to clear. They may have electromagnetic pollution that we need to balance, and goes on. And we have a very complete system of evaluating and treating that, and the ZYTO was one of the things that allows us to help accomplish that. But when we see a patient, we look at them holistically, not just the spine, but the cranium, the fascia, the organ system. You can actually adjust organs. And you say, are you crazy? Well, probably I've been accused of that, but no, you can. I learned that from an osteopath who taught us to evaluate organ function in AK, and also in Desjardins' work. They also taught you to evaluate organ function and use specific reflex points. With the percussion, you could percuss the liver, put it back into motion. All the organs are into motion. If they're not, they have dis-ease, they have dysfunction. And the heart moves, we know that, but so does the liver and the pancreas and the stomach. They move, and sometimes organs can be so locked up they don't move. So we need to put things back into motion. Motion is health and wellness. The lack of motion is dis-ease or dysfunction. So our chiropractic license in most states allows us to evaluate a person for function and dysfunction, and to adjust the spine to help function return. But these other factors fit into most of our licenses throughout the United States as well. So we can do structural correction, nutritional correction, organ adjusting, cranial psychotherapy, etc. So we don't flip you clear off the energy grid here. We're going to stop right now. If you have any questions, you can just go to brimhall.com, and there's a lot of answers there. It tells you a lot of things that we have available, and the phone number is listed there, as well as the email to my chief cook and bottle washer over there, Jason Matuszewski, and he's happy to answer your questions or tell you where you can go to find it. We have Brimhall practitioners around the United States and in other countries as well. So good day, and God bless you all.
Thanks again for joining us today, Dr. Brimhall. I know I really enjoyed that presentation, and I hope you all did as well. If you have any questions, you can email us at marketing@zyto.com. In these uncertain times of quarantines and restrictions on business, it can sometimes feel overwhelming to think about how you can grow your wellness business if you can't have clients into the office, or if you have clients that are living out of state or even out of country. Just wanted to quickly plug our ZYTO remote system. With ZYTO remote, you're able to scan clients from anywhere in the world from the comfort of their own home. So you just ship the ZYTO remote hand cradle to them, and you're able to conduct your scans without in-office visits. The ZYTO remote system is an incredibly powerful tool to help you grow your practice. Especially in these times, I would definitely recommend taking a look at it. If you have any questions, we've got a couple links here on this slide. We've got an infographic that will explain more, as well as some links to learn more on our website. Thanks again for joining us today. We hope to see you next time on January 6th, 2021 at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time.